Hello, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube, and welcome to another episode of Fanalysis, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. I'm Retty Ford, this is Evan over 95.
Hello.
This is Antoine Bandelet.
I solemnly swear that I'm up to no good.
And this is Jensurai 1.
Doing Chapter 11 today, the Dueling Club. Basically, a long story short, we have the gang messing around with the Polyjuice Potion, gathering ingredients. Lockhart starts a dueling club of questionable success, and then finally, Fletch gets petrified.
Yes, so a lot to
That's
talk about in
synopsis.
this one. Let's get this ball started. Harry have fun, we open up with Harry waking up and he thinks, okay, where the trio or where the rest of the trio must be in the bathroom, right? I don't know why, but they must be. It's kind of just beeline straight there. I felt that was a bit almost plot conveniency because I don't know why they decide, maybe they're there because he doesn't actually know until he gets there and finds out. So a bit of a strange one rather than trying the common room, but.
I mean, it's less awkward than his interaction with Percy, which goes
which is
absolutely
bizarre.
nowhere and serves no purpose.
It gives him the notion
It's
of the
only
bathroom.
it's only for when you reread it and you're like, oh, that's when Percy was messing around with. Was it Clearwater?
Yeah, Penelope Clearwater.
Yeah.
And again, as we
That's
mentioned in
all
the
it really
previous
is.
episode,
As a
it's the
first
red
reading, it
herring.
does feel kind of like, why?
Yeah.
But
they go to he goes to the bathroom and finds Ron and Hermione set up with the potion, the early stages of it in the cubicle. I love the visual of these guys just sitting with the cauldron on the toilet stand and the ever-present waterproof fire as well. A specialty of Hermione's at this point.
Yep.
Oh yeah, the blue flames that she has going on. Yeah.
Bluebell flames.
Such a shame it never came up in the movies.
I know, right? It's
Well,
such a
I
nice
mean, the
visual.
latest
Oh,
one.
yeah.
In the latest one.
Yeah, true. Actually, yeah, it's kind of there. I somewhat doubt it's the same spell, but they are blue
Well,
flames.
yeah. Just
Yeah.
saying, it blew fire, so
Yeah, well, they discuss obviously Colin's been petrified. It's all around the school, as you'd expect. Nothing so secret in Hogwarts for more than 5 seconds. And they decided to kind of up their schedule and begin the potion early as a result. So they went straight here to do that instead of visiting Harry in the hospital wing. They're talking
In the
about
ER.
they're talking about the suspicions of Lucius Malfoy from being the original person from the. To open the gate, they open the chamber beforehand because obviously Malfoy's father and that Malfoy's going to be gone for Christmas, so they want to kind of take the opportunity to stay behind themselves and use that to get the information out of him. Because then, which kind of makes sense, because then the common room is going to be pretty much empty. Then I like that idea, and it's just it's a smart plan. So I like the introduction of that.
You
The
also
other
get the
thing I
progression of the reaction from the school. Like, you get some foreshadow with Ginny, where she's distraught because she feels responsible directly, but also that was her classmate who sat next to her. So that's a big thing. And then I liked how Fred and George tried their best to make her feel better in their
Did
Fred
they?
and Georgie way, but
Yeah.
astronomically failed.
Yeah.
But the attempt was there. So and again, like we've said before, J.K. Rowling is really good at setting the scene for the school. Like the school is a living, breathing thing of itself. All the kids have their own opinions about every single episode that happens around which you said Golden Trio, which we didn't know was a thing until recently.
I've always known it as the Golden Trio. I didn't realize that was I know it's a fan-made thing, but I thought it was a pretty common term. But maybe that's just me. That's what my friends have always called them anyway. Or the Hogwarts Trio. I prefer that one, but the Golden Trio is more kind of nomenclature.
One
What
thing
would you
I
have,
would like.
Connor? Yeah.
One thing I want to mention is I actually kind of like how they came to the conclusion that Lucius Malfoy opened it before, because given their suppositions and the lack of lack of complete information, from where they're standing, it actually makes perfect sense. They don't know that the last time the chamber was opened was 50 years ago, which was way before Lucius Malfoy was here.
And they don't find that out actually until after they've already confirmed their suspicions are wrong about Malfoy, right? That's post that. So this entire theory, while completely baseless,
Because he doesn't get sucked into the book until
It's the
It's
sort
way
of thing
after.
that
it's
makes...
not unreasonable in an overall sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
they came to the best conclusion they could based on the information they had, which unfortunately wasn't much.
But they realise that they're going to need to get the more complicated parts from from Snape's classroom, or
Right.
from his storeroom anyway. And
Which
this
is a
leads to
great
one of the most
carryover.
hilarious.
Well, the divergence stuff,
Snape
but even
scenes.
the fact that Hermione comes up with it, because at the book one, there was allusions to she started to loosen up a little bit around Harry and Ron, and now she's the one being the leader of this idea, and then her idea being well, I will never, I shouldn't get in trouble because I'm as great as I am. I think she even said that last year
I'm
too.
squeaky
with-
clean is what she's basically getting at. Because
yeah,
they're
and then
on their
she
last.
said it with With Flitwick, because she said she wouldn't get expelled or whatever because she like got the highest score on the charms test like the previous year. So she still has that going about her, but you see her taking the lead on being kind of more mischievous as time goes on.
The quiet Gryffindor trait starting to come out in the background of her.
Yeah, I think it's also the question of which teachers she's pissing off. Like she would never, ever, ever cross McGonagall, but Snape. Who the fuck cares? We all hate Snape.
And then, as we'll see with Trelawney, she would also have no issues with messing with Trelawney.
Yes,
very true. Yes.
Put it lightly.
Yeah, but I like the idea because it's funny because Snape chooses to explode at all the weirdest moments. Like this, this happens, and he doesn't immediately beeline for Potter, you fool. What have you done? It's
the other times where it's not Potter's fault.
It's
Potter, it's your fault.
Precisely. It's bit haphazard in terms of when he does that and when he doesn't. But it's a funny scene because just the idea of that firework going off and the chaos ensuing.
And the start of the Fred and George's, I mean, it's not one that they've created. I think it's one that they've purchased, but it is the start of them messing around with it, with magical objects that will eventually be used in schools.
Yes, yeah.
to
lead
cause
into
a
ruckus.
joke shop, yeah.
Indeed. Yeah. But we get the roll credits of the chapter with the Dueling Club being introduced. Seamus Finnegan pointed out and Dean Thomas points out that the messages on the board for them to look at, and they all think it's a great idea until they find out who's running it with Lockhart. Because again, it is a good idea. I wish they kind of continued this kind of I suppose we get the stuff in order, of course, in a different manner, but this kind of idea would have been nice to see.
Well, Harry doing himself because the school actively is not allowing them to learn how to fight.
It would have been cool to see in later books and done properly.
Right. But I would think Lupin would have done something like that on the side. Like he already was kind of cool in that way, where at least he was giving Harry individual lessons.
It would have helped get around his whole monsters speciality as well. Like he could have introduced that side as like a separate thing away from his classroom.
The funny thing is that I actually have very fond memories of playing the Prisoner of Azkaban video game, and it actually includes the Dueling Club as a minigame. Because the entirety of Hogwarts is basically an open world, you can basically just wander into the Great Hall and participate in some practice mock duels with fellow students as just a minigame. And
I preferred the second game in that run, but the third one was always really good, yeah.
The second game had Dueling Club as well?
No. The second one was my favourite game of that run, but the third one was also very, very good. Like, it introduced some nice little extras like that, for example.
I also like the slip with the little tidbit about Flitwick being a dueling champion, because that does come up later in the seventh book when it becomes relevant. But it's even as far back. I didn't realize that it was this far back in book 2.
Yeah, it's really cool. I think this is the only mention it has of it, actually.
Right, I think ever.
Yeah, it may just be a random rumor, like a reiteration later on if it does come up again. But yeah, we get the.
But anyway, Lockhart comes out in a very exaggerated entrance, as he's want to do. Introduces Snape as his partner, saying, he knows a tiny bit about dueling, so he'll help me.
And I love the idea of Snape, just the idea of or maybe Lockhart went to start. Maybe he did go to Flitwick first, and he's like, "No, I'm not doing that with you." And then he gets to Snape eventually, and then Snape's like, "Yes, I agree." He's like, "Oh, what, really?" And it's because he wants to annihilate him.
Yes, I love that. That's the reason he goes for it.
Brilliant.
It's literally he just wants the opportunity to humiliate this oaf, and who can blame him? I think.
Especially in this moment, he's coming off as so pompous. It's almost grating as you read it. You're almost rooting for Snape at this point, which is a rarity.
That's what I was about to say. Yeah, it's the one time you will ever root for him, on just pure get him, Snape. wipe the floor with him.
I know. And it's I will describe another little subtle difference between the book's description of Snape's behavior and what's shown in the movie is that in the book, it's explicitly stated that his upper lip is curling, and it's looks kind of scary, but in the movie, it's Alan Rickman being
stone-faced.
But at the same time, the Alan Rickman stone face still does a brilliant job of conveying Snape's hostility towards Lockhart. It's just almost a death glare focus.
Yeah, agreed.
So
either way, Lockhart's response is priceless. I like how he's like, okay, never mind, moving on.
And we also get the sequence where introduction of Expelliarmus, which is pretty significant in the Harry Potter mythos and lore.
Yeah,
to say the least.
And interestingly, introduced incorrectly here, pretty much, because we always comment about how in the films it's stupidly inconsistent and all over the place, and it is to a way bigger extent than in the books. But interestingly enough, the first introduction of it here is just incorrect. It blasts him off.
Someone blasting off. Now it's funny because there was a big theory in book 6, Half-Blood Prince, when not Dumbledore. Yeah, when Dumbledore died, and then Snape had hit him with the Avada Kedavra, but it sent him off his feet, and it's like usually people crumple to the ground. So people were thinking about, like, people came back to this example to be like, well, maybe he's just really good. Maybe he does like a different spell wordlessly, but then says another one, without it. But then I don't think that actually is the case. I think Connor was right from before the recording. Which, do you want to explain what you were saying? Yeah.
What I was saying is my belief is that it's basically just down to the level of magnitude driving the spell. So if someone really powerful uses the disarming spell, it doesn't just disarm you, it blasts you back. But if someone really weak is using the spell, it'll just tear your wand out of your grip, and that's that. And of course, it also depends on what the person casting the spell wants to do. Like, we know that Snape can just do a precise disarm where he just yoinks your wand, that's that. He does that in the third one. But here, he's kind of looking to humiliate Lockhart, so he wants to blast.
Puts a little more oomph into it.
Yeah, and the fact that Lockhart himself is clearly not the most competent person to be able to deflect it anyway, so he's going to be getting the full blast. But as well, we have established in the book
the way he tries to write it off though is hysterical.
I know, right? I know. Oh well, of course, it was a demonstration.
Pretty obvious,
yeah. But the other thing worthy of note as well is that in the books themselves, when the trio blasts Snape simultaneously in the third book, 3 different spells going at once, it does have the same effect. So it does seem to be the implication that the more powerful the spell, the more impact it is.
Right. It would be cool if that yanking happened at the hand rather than what you see in the movies, which usually at the chest. Like, if it was just like a big whoa, that would work like a lot better.
Yeah, that would be very cool. But yeah, at least it makes more consistent sense after this moment, and then logically this can be applied there. In the films, it's just Expelliarmus does whatever the hell the people who shooting the film wanted to do.
And it looks different almost all the time too.
Yeah, and it's also the fact it's not just Expelliarmus that does that. Like, practically every spell. Like, come on, Newt Scamander basically just using Revelio for everything.
Anyway,
so in contrast to the film, in contrast to the film where it's just Malfoy and Harry going up on stage, they break everyone up into groups.
Which goes about as well as you'd expect with a bunch of young teens.
And also fits to why Hermione actually turns into a cat later, which isn't really explained in the movie. It's just like, I must have got that when I took it off of her. Yeah. But it's here, but it's when they were fighting. That's when it happened.
Yeah, we don't even know what Bulstrode looks like in the films. Here, she's actually doing
described as something out of The Holiday with Hags, which is good. I think she does a good job of describing it, but also using them in the world that we just got familiar with earlier, and it being tied to Lockhart's book. So I think that was a really good description.
For all the non-essential characters, I mean, we've talked before how she snapshot describes every major character in seconds, and it's really effective. Yeah. But she also does the minor characters that don't really matter that much, that in even more concise detail. So she lets the imagination fill it in when it's not relevant for the overall story, which I enjoy.
Even with Ernie later, she just says stout boy, and I had it in my mind a particular
precisely.
Stout boy.
Yeah, it's like just it's very effective basically, and obviously she then brings it in. There's a brief description again for him and others that become more relevant, at least partially later on in the story. So she takes the right amount of time with each one and whenever they're relevant.
But then they realize it's a bad idea having all the kids fight at once.
Who'd have thought?
So they do 1v1s, and they have Malfoy and Potter go up as the first example. And I love, again, Harry's snark is just great throughout the entire series, but this one in particular, when he says, "Do what? Drop my wand?" It's just so great. I love his sass, man.
It is enjoyable.
Quick on the draw.
And Malfoy goes straight for the Serpent Sorcerer, of course. Like, let's just blast.
Oh, I thought of that. Snape whispers that in his ear. So was it a case of, him just saying, let's see how Potter will do with the snake? Or, like, did he have more nefarious thoughts? Like, do you think Snape saying that had anything more than just use that spell?
I don't know. It's very unclear on what he was supposed to be going for there. Because realistically, he can't have any clue about Harry's, Parseltongue.
Being a Parseltongue,
deal. Or even the fact that the basilisk is, a basilisk. So it's kind of like just this one random bit of chance. It's kind of woven in for the sake of the story. It doesn't really make sense on part of the characters. Or even for Malfoy being able to conjure a snake. That's pretty advanced stuff for a second year.
Yeah, it is. But as we said, in the first book, he is probably second only to Hermione. He would have been top of the class.
Yeah, he's definitely up there.
Or not for Hermione being there.
But even up being up with that level of skill, for a second year to conjure this kind of thing, it's pretty advanced given what we get, what is discussed in transfiguration exams and classes and stuff. So it's just a bit of a weird moment, but it gets the job done. And it reveals to us, of course, that Harry is a Parseltongue because he
so you get the infamous
talks to the
Parcel
snake.
now.
Well, I mean, we knew that anyway. We knew we could talk to snakes. We just didn't know the significance of it in the story. Another example, very good example of her dropping things early on that then comes back later. She's a master of that. We mentioned Ginny earlier in this chapter. Keeps bringing that up and somehow making it not especially because she blends it with Percy, of course, but you don't focus in on that saying, why does Ginny keep coming up? You never at the first reading think this must be relevant. At least certainly not as a young kid.
Also probably worth noting is the fact that in the books, when he is speaking that, it's just English with slightly altered font, whereas in the movies, he's actually speaking a snakish tongue. You actually hear him.
Yes, yeah.
Well, I think it's actually from his limited perspective, and I don't even think it is has italics. I think it's just like, leave him alone without italics. So we are still in his headspace. So he's just like, I'm just telling him leave him alone, but everybody else outside of it, what?
But like I should have explained that better. We don't hear what they're hearing, unlike with films.
Yeah,
sorry.
I do also like how they do stay consistent with this, because one of my favorite details in the 6th book is that when they're checking out the Voldemort memories and they visit the Gaunt house, it's like Harry has to actually has to notice that the one wizard there who isn't a Parseltongue visibly can't understand what the Gaunts are saying to realize, oh wait, the Gaunts are speaking to each other in Parseltongue. That's why I can understand them.
Yeah, meanwhile, Dumbledore just like hearing just constantly from between the two.
Wow, I think you actually did the exact line.
That was
the exact line.
Almost disturbingly accurate.
Yeah, the Sias Yes one is the popular one. There's another one
Callan's
as well.
hiding some secrets, guys.
Sias Yes, there's another one, but I can never remember that one. But yeah.
And as always, I prefer Book Ron because he's the one who is the one mostly explaining why it's so bad for him and not Hermione stealing one of his lines. Because he brings it in by saying, "Oh, this is just bad in this community," and then Hermione says, "Oh yeah, I read about it. Salazar's Slytherin." So it does work, I think, a little bit better in the book of how they both will be responding in this situation.
Yeah, agreed. The book almost always does a better instance of sharing the two's knowledge. With the film, especially later on in the series, it leans heavily in Hermione's favour because she's the kind of knowledge character and Ron's the comic relief in the films. Whereas here, they book learning and just familiarity with the world, they pair it together very nicely, which is good here in particular because it's 2/3 of the trio kind of not turning against Harry in any way, but the focus is being shifted, from their perspective looking inwards, as with the rest of the school. So it's nice that he feels that kind of isolation, which also then leads nicely into his thoughts about Slytherin. It's like, oh well, that's not strictly true. You were very closely nearly put in Slytherin, Harry, and those kind of doubts, the isolation that is being forced upon him. Yeah, it's very effective.
The funny thing is that Harry is very, very, very distantly related to Slytherin through the Peverills because, well, the Slytherin family was also descended from the Peverills. So, it's like the Slytherins it's like Salazar Slytherin is almost a super, super distant cousin, and by extension, so is Voldemort.
So he has kind of the both reasons for having that heritage. Aside from, Voldemort's not soul, of course.
Yeah, so then he starts going to look for him to apologize. Sorry, by him I mean Fletcher.
Yeah.
How do you even say his other last name?
Justin Fletchley. The erstwhile victim of Harry's snake assault. He goes to kind of find him and apologise, or at least explain, rather, what really happened, to get the Puffpuffs on his back. God damn it, Ernie! And the Hufflepuffs, constant gossipers in the library.
Yeah, he's not too, they're not too receptive of his attempts to make peace, sadly.
Yeah.
Right.
But he tries.
And I like that Harry does the Gryffindor thing where instead of maybe turning away after he hears everything, he goes right in front of him and goes yo,
Please,
what? Can I at least apologize to him myself? And they're still like, ugh. And I like that one guy's like, oh, I'll have my bloodline is as pure as it comes.
Yeah.
And he's so cool.
And he's like, I don't care about your blood.
Yeah, but I like as well that he wasn't leading with hostility. He just heard this relatively hurtful thing, and he goes in like, okay, level head for once, and just go in and explain. He doesn't go in and go, how dare you talk about me behind my back? She does. She escalates it nicely going through the conversation. He gets understandably miffed rather than just outraged from the start. Not that would have been too unacceptable, but whatever. But he leaves that situation. Well, someone's into Hagrid actually before we move on. He finds out about Hagrid and he drops the information about the roosters because the roosters have been getting killed. I wonder who that could be at this point. Well, let's be fair. I say that jokingly because we know retroactively it's of course Ginny, but we don't. There's no indication that it's her at this point, like outside of the fact that she was hanging around the hut. So it's very cleverly disguised on the first run. Yeah, shouldn't mock that there. But it leaves that situation and goes and finds the now petrified form of Justin Finch Fletchley with Nicholas. Nearly headless Nick as well.
A weird, morbid, like blackened ghost, which is a very odd
kind of
sight.
Just hanging
I think
loosely.
It's really cool.
Yeah,
it
very
also
well
really
described
makes
and very cool in the film as well.
And it also makes a point about just how terrifying the basilisk itself is. Its power is so great that it can even knock down a ghost.
Right.
It does a very good job of establishing just how powerful it is with that very notion, because ghosts are they're ghosts. You can't harm ghosts. They're already dead. So that kind of just that, even as a child, that kind of image and idea is very powerful. And of course, Harry's now here to see it, so of course he must be the one to do it. And
it's all leading here. Like the plot has been leading, like giving ideas. And then also when Ernie was talking about it, he was like, he could, like Voldemort could have been attacking him to get rid of a competitor. He had let slip that he was going to Eton. Like they were kind of establishing this, at least from their perspective, why they would say, definitely heir of Slytherin here.
Yeah. So it does actually make sense to an extent that they're going to be buying these rumors, even if it is a bit, jumping to conclusions.
And in good mystery, you do that. It has to kind of good mystery makes every kind of scenario make sense, so that you're along for the ride and you're not just questioning it.
And justifying the ideas of the Hogwarts kids as well, because if they're just being completely baselessly arseholeish, you're not going to be on their side. Whereas here, it kind of you're getting the whole.
Like,
God,
I get
this
it.
is horrible.
Yeah.
This is a horrible situation rather than just stupidity.
Just backpedaling for a second, because in the Death Day party, we had that whole discussion about how ghosts actually perceive the living world. And just continuing that on for a second, how do you think nearly headless Nick would have perceived the basilisk? Because the whole impression I have is that, given the fact that the basilisk was able to affect him in this manner, while the body itself would probably still be faded out the way ghosts are faded out to us, I kind of have the impression that the eyes would be perfect clarity right there, and he just would have saw them and been like, what the fuck?
No question. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much I buy about the whole kind of spectral visual thing for the rest of the Ghost's sight, but the eyes, regardless and which way you see it, are going to be the most present thing. It's always focused on the eyes, especially when we get to Myrtle later. That's all I remember, those big yellow eyes.
That's all you remember.
Piercing, and that's where the source of power comes from anyway, so it's just mythologically relevant, if nothing else.
But I love how they move him as well.
Yes, yeah.
When they take him to
cool.
the infirmary,
it's hilarious.
Let's get a big fan and just fan him up.
Waft him up the stairs. Brilliant. Yeah. But McGonagall arrives.
Make do with what you got,
Yeah, McGonagall arrives to kind of find out all this is happening. Ernie's saying, caught red-handed, caught in the act. Right. And we get the escalation of the issue to Dumbledore, because of course this is a bit above the head of house situation here, and this is the introduction to, or at least the next chapter will be, Dumbledore's office. We get led to there for the first time. It's another one of those mainstays of the series and Hogwarts itself. One of those character areas we've talked about before. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it'll be not insignificant one for the future as well. So, but that's the wrap of this chapter, guys. So let us know in the comments down below anything you think we've missed or want to discuss in greater detail, and we'll get back to that at some point. I'm ready for, and I still don't have an outro.
Evan Nova 95. We hope you guys enjoyed. We'll see you guys later.
Justin Loyal, unafraid of toil. Good night, YouTube.
Antoine Bandelet, peace, love, and mischief managed.
Goodbye.